Good evening and welcome to the virtual public information meeting for state project number 63-723, which is the replacement of a retaining wall located at the south end of bridge number 01765 that carries I-84 eastbound over Asylum Avenue in Hartford, Connecticut. We hope that everybody in attendance finds the presentation informative and that we'll be able to address and answer any questions or concerns you may have. My name is Jonathan Kang, and I am a project engineer with the Connecticut Department of Transportation. Before we begin the presentation and introduce the project team, I would like to go over a few housekeeping points and explain the format for tonight's meeting. The meeting will consist of two parts and last approximately 20 minutes. The first portion will consist of the presentation of design by the department's consultant liaison engineer for this project, CHA. This will be followed by the second portion, where we will host a live question and answer session. Available to those joining us tonight through Microsoft Teams is the option to view captions or subtitles. To turn on this feature, select the CC button at the bottom right corner of your screen. This turns on the captioning. Then choose a language by selecting the settings wheel next to the CC button. Select captions/subtitles, and then select the desired language. Available languages for tonight are English, Spanish, Portuguese, and Vietnamese. There are three means by which you will be able to communicate with us during the live question and answer session. Questions can be submitted via email, calling and leaving a voicemail, or if you're joining us on Microsoft Teams, you can use the chat window at the right side of the Teams window. The project email, voicemail, and chat box will be screened by the project team during the question and answer session. Answers to all questions will be posted in the chat window, and all questions and answers will be read out loud. Questions may be asked at any time during the presentation, and they will be answered during the question and answer session. The primary means by which to communicate with the project team will be via email at dotproject0063-0723 at ct.gov, as it is currently shown on the slide. Phones can be used by calling us at 860-944-1111 and leaving a voicemail. And lastly, once again, the chat box can be used if you are joining us through the Microsoft Teams application. The question and comment period by email or phone will be open through Tuesday, December 22nd, 2020. Therefore, questions or comments that are thought of after tonight's meeting may be submitted until December 22nd, 2020 via email or voicemail. In Microsoft Teams, questions can be asked by clicking on the question mark to show the live Q&A window. Select the Ask a Question button at the bottom of the screen and then type in your question. You can then send the question by pressing Enter or clicking on the arrow. If preferred, you may submit your questions anonymously by clicking on the option to do so. There may be a slight delay, but all submitted questions should appear in the featured section. The Microsoft Teams chat function will only be available during tonight's live question and answer session. There is also a project webpage where tonight's presentation, including the question and answer session, will be made available. The webpage will also include information that was explained on how to leave questions and comments for the project team. That website is https://portal.ct.gov/DOT Hartford 63723, as it is currently shown on the slide. I'd like to now introduce the project team. First, we have with the Connecticut Department of Transportation, Bart Sweeney, the Division Chief of Bridges. Next, we have Robbie Barakat, the Principal Engineer. Then Ryan Martin, the Supervising Project Engineer. Matt Giannakopoulos, the Rights of Way Coordinator. And myself, Jonathan Kang, the Project Engineer. Additionally, Clove Harbor and Associates, or CHA, is working on the project as the department's consultant liaison engineers. From CHA, we have Donald Wurst, Project Manager, Thomas Lapata, Senior Engineer, and Carl Stanek, Project Engineer. We would greatly appreciate if you would complete the public survey after tonight's meeting, which has been established for this project on SurveyMonkey. Virtual public information meetings are relatively new for the department, and so the results of the survey will assist us in using this format in the future. There is also a civil rights flyer available. Links to both the public survey and the civil rights flyer are available on the project website mentioned earlier. Lastly, I am required to read the following sentence as part of Title VI Civil Rights. No person shall, on the basis of race, color, or national origin, be excluded from participation or subject to discrimination in the development of this project. We will now begin the presentation of the project, and in doing so, I will now hand it over to Project Engineer Carl Stanek of CHA. Carl?
Thanks very much for that introduction, John. I would first like to start out by welcoming everyone to tonight's presentation. We greatly appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedules to attend, especially here in between the holidays. We hope that you and your families remain safe and healthy as we continue to navigate through these times of uncertainty. As noted in one of my earlier slides, my name is Carl Stanek, and I'm the project engineer from CHA Consulting that will be managing this project on behalf of the Consultant Liaison Engineer, or CLE program, where we work directly with the Connecticut Department of Transportation. I'll be providing more of the technical overview for tonight's presentation of state project number 63-723, which consists of the replacement of the retaining wall at the south end of bridge number 01765, which carries I-84 eastbound over Asylum Avenue. Right now on the screen, you should see an aerial view of Hartford within the vicinity of this project. I'm sure many of you are probably very familiar with this area, but for those that are not, I'll provide a quick overview of the area shown on the screen and point out some of the key features. Towards the upper right of this map, you should see a blue north arrow up here, indicating that north is in the direction at the top of the screen. The project site is noted by that red circle in the upper middle here. Just east or to the right of the project site is the ArtSpace building right here, located on 555 Asylum Avenue, which is the street just north of the building. Bridge number 1765, which I just mentioned, is north of the project site up here and carries traffic from I-84 eastbound, which, as you can see, is located to the west of the project site right here, and guides traffic off the top of the screen there. You can see that an on-ramp joins in also at this location from Broad Street. East of the ArtSpace building within that cluster of roadways is the I-84 West on-ramp. We also have the Connecticut Fast Track Busway right here. That's kind of hidden kind of down here. Also the exit 48A off-ramp from I-84 eastbound kind of drops right in here. And Amtrak also kind of comes along here as well. You also see a portion of Bushnell Park down here. Union Station's up to the north, and that's where Amtrak kind of picks up and drops off from there. This next slide shows an enlarged map of the project site. As I mentioned in the previous slide, this project involves the replacement of a failed retaining wall located on the south end of bridge number 1765. This failed wall is outlined here on the screen in red. You'll also notice that most of the wall runs parallel to the ArtSpace building right here, as it runs off the screen and continues to the southwest end of the building, as you'll see in upcoming photos. There's a small section of the wall that runs perpendicular to the building right here. The section butts up against the dry rubble masonry wall that's right here and is shown with the yellow outline. Both of these walls will be replaced as part of this project, so this whole area here, including the portion of the wall that's down here. Next to the dry rubble masonry wall is retaining wall D, just shown right here, and continues up and off to the screen towards Asylum Avenue. This wall is considered part of Bridge 1765. Again, you have Asylum Avenue somewhere up off the top of the screen here, and you also have I-84 eastbound off to to the left here on this, which is not shown in this photo. These next several slides will show photos that were taken recently at the project site. I've included a small location map with colored boxes over here to the right so that you can see where the walls are in map view. This location map will also be in the next 2 slides over on that same side. For this slide, you will see that the main focus is of the dry rubble masonry wall, so the wall has been filled in with yellow on that mini map. The photo on the left, which was taken while standing on the embankment behind retaining wall D, which is over here, and shows the top of the dry rubble masonry wall over here and the north section of the failed masonry wall right here. The top of the east section of the failed wall is underneath that vegetation and scaffolding shown on the top of the photo there. The photo on the right is of the east elevation or face of the dry rubble masonry wall. In the foreground, you'll see a ladder was used to access the alleyway from the top of the wall. Here are some photos of the failed masonry wall taken from the alleyway. The photo on the left shows the north elevation or face of the failed masonry wall looking in the south direction. You can clearly see where the pressure from the ground has caused this wall to crack and fail on the corner right over here, with most of it leaning towards the ArtSpace building. The photo on the right focuses more on that same corner of the failed wall right there and shows the east portion is leaning towards and actually touching the ArtSpace building. So on this next slide, we have photos of the east section of the failed masonry wall. The photo on the left shows the south end of the failed wall looking north. Here you can clearly see that the wall is resting on the ArtSpace building. The photo on the right shows a typical portion of the top of the failed masonry wall. Here you can also see a portion of that scaffolding that was laying on the ground within the area. Going from left to right, this next slide begins with a photo of the alleyway looking north towards Asylum Avenue from a top retaining wall D. You can clearly see the existing overgrown vegetation, especially here in the alleyway. The other 2 photos were taken from a recent assessment report created by the designer for this project, Hardesty in Hanover. They show the current condition of retaining wall D. Part of the scope of this project, which will be discussed in an upcoming slide, will also be to address any issues with this wall as well, since the contractor is already going to be in the area working. As you can see, the wall overall looks to be in a great visual condition. There's some minor cracks noted in the wall, as you may be able to see in the distance on the photo on the right. There's some vegetation that's actually coming through one of the joints in the wall itself. The photos in this next slide are of the embankment of I-84 eastbound. The one on the left shows the embankment looking north, and the one on the right shows the embankment looking south. Here you'll see some pretty overgrown vegetation within the site. Now that we've reviewed some general location maps and photos of the project site, we can discuss the overall scope of this project. This project will include the removal of both the failed masonry wall and the dry rubble masonry wall. A new soil nail wall will then be constructed to replace these walls. The photo in the upper right on this slide shows an example of a soil nail wall during construction. An underdrain will be installed to collect the groundwater from behind the newly installed wall, which is not anticipated to be a large amount. This underdrain will run through the alleyway and connect to the catch basin on Asylum Avenue. There's currently an underdrain connected to the same catch basin from behind retaining wall D. Part of that system will be replaced, and the rest will be tied into the new underdrain system. Down here is a photo of the catch basin looking south. The ArtSpace building is here on the left. You have retaining wall D here on the right, and the alleyway is behind the board here, which is probably constructed to prevent unauthorized access to the alleyway, and also provides a nice mural in the process. Lastly, as I said earlier, any issues with retaining wall D are anticipated to be addressed as part of this project as well, since the contractor will already be working in the area. Only minor cracks were noted during the designer's assessment of the wall, which should be patched as part of this project also. These next several slides will show the preliminary project plans as of up to this point. We'll start here with the slide showing the preliminary plan of the new proposed soil nail wall location. Again, north is pointing to the top of the screen. There's a legend shown here on the left, which will serve as a guide to let you know what the colors in this plan represent. Here is the estimated location of the existing failed retaining wall and the dry rubble masonry wall. You'll notice the outline of the west side of the ArtSpace building right along here. So you'll see just how close that existing wall is to the currently to the building. That red slightly dashed line that you kind of see right here following parallel to the building actually is the right-of-way line, showing where state property is estimated to end and the ArtSpace property begin. As you saw from the photos earlier, the failed wall is estimated to be leaning within the ArtSpace property right-of-way. This dashed line here shows the under drain, and which is proposed to connect to the catch basin on Asylum Avenue, as shown in that earlier photo. Here's the location of the proposed wall. As you'll see, it's cast pretty far away from the building. There's another section proposed here as well that attaches to retaining wall D, which is part of Bridge 1765, as we discussed earlier. This area here is where soil is to be removed or cut from the site behind the failed wall, but in front of the proposed wall. And back here behind the proposed wall is the proposed fill slope area. Here on this slide, you can see a section of the longer proposed soil nail wall accompanied by an elevation of the shorter one. Starting from the ArtSpace building, right here, you have the alleyway shown here with the underdrain, and then retaining wall D. The shorter wall then butts up against retaining wall D here and continues almost to the face of the longer wall, as you may recall from the plan view. Then again is the section right here through the longer wall, where you can see how to set back from the building. The wall will be constructed at a 3-to-1 slope. Here are the soil nails, kind of shown in typical fashion, in dashed lines, which will be anchored into the ground, tying the concrete facing the wall back and holding back the I-84 eastbound embankment. The soil nails are also indicated by these symbols here in the elevation of the shorter section. You can see what the soil nails look like in typical fashion here in this construction photo, which was copied from the project scope slide. You'll notice a note calling out a decorative architectural facing on both walls, which is just shown typically here. The department is hoping to provide something much nicer than what's currently out there, although a decorative style has yet to be chosen. It also shouldn't look like this either, since this photo seems to be taken while construction is still progressing. There is a protective fence that is shown above the wall for safety considerations. You'll see also that much of the soil will be removed in this area here, and a portion of the embankment next to I-84 eastbound will be leveled out prior to establishing a finished grade slope of 2-to-1. Here we have the longer portion of the proposed soil nail wall in elevation view, showing the wall's face, and a section of the shorter wall right here next to retaining wall D in this area, which continues off to the screen on the right. On the previous slide, we saw a section of the longer wall and the elevation or face of the shorter wall. Essentially, this view is what you would see when facing the highway. The new longer wall is anticipated to measure 58 feet in length, slightly longer when compared to the length of the failed and dry rubble masonry walls, which were estimated to be roughly 45 feet long and 8 feet long, respectively. These symbols that are shown right here represent the estimated location of the soil nails, which, as we discussed before, would tie the wall back and hold back the I-84 embankment located behind the wall that's drawn in here. So pretty much as if you were looking beyond your screen, just to help you picture it in 3D. Here's the protective fence, again shown atop the wall for safety considerations. Here in the foreground, you can see the shorter wall in section view. Again, here are the soil nails shown as if going through the ground to tie the wall back. This dashed line right here represents the anticipated finished grade or ground behind the soil nail wall, You'll notice that this will taper down in front of the longer wall here at a 4.5 to 1 slope. The ground behind the shorter wall and retaining wall D will remain flat, and then taper down to a 2 to 1 slope to a height just shorter than the top of the wall. On this next slide, we have a preliminary highway plan shown. North in this plan is off to the right. As with the enlarged plan shown earlier, there's a legend here on the left. We've already walked through the enlarged plan, so this will be more of an overview of the rest of the area, although I'll still point out the that cut slope area here. You have the fill slope area here, which actually continues along most of the embankment. Shown over here is the anticipated area of the access road, which is to be restored after use. Up top, you'll see a slice shown in yellow of existing pavement that is to be repaved along the I-84 eastbound roadway, depending on construction. Over to the right, shown in red, is a section of the sidewalk, which will be reconstructed once the work involving the drainage tie-in to that catch basin on Asylum has been completed. The red lines that you see in this plan that have some partial dashes represent the estimated right-of-way lines. As you can see, pretty much the entire project is anticipated to be constructed within the state's right-of-way. Part of the work involving the drainage tie-in may cross the state's right-of-way over here into the city. And we also have from the previous enlarged slide a little bit of the crossing into the ArtSpace right-of-way as well. We'll discuss these possible right-of-way impacts in a later slide coming up. Okay, so this slide and the next one will show the two alternative access road layouts currently being considered by the designer. The first alternative, which you see here, reflects the anticipated work that was shown in the highway plan we reviewed a couple of slides ago. This version of the access road would allow for construction vehicles to enter from the Broad Street on-ramp to get to the construction area here. Construction vehicles then have to travel back up the embankment and then exit to the Broad Street on-ramp and out I-84 eastbound. Again, as we discussed before, this would maintain that most of the construction activities would stay within the state right-of-way. Okay, now this slide shows the second alternative being considered, which would allow for construction vehicles to enter from the Broad Street on-ramp to the construction area, and then instead of exiting up top, actually exit through the ArtSpace parking lot using the driveway and then out onto Asylum Avenue. As you can see, the state not only owns the land closest to the highway up here, but also owns a portion of the parking lot behind the building right here, which leads to the building owner. The city of Hartford seems to own the driveway portion over here. Utilizing this alternative should still ensure that most of the construction activities, again, remain on state-owned land, including this additional area noted up here. But the department's still weighing the impact that this alternative would pose. As of right now, this alternative would require the use of these 4 parking spaces right here. Per our preliminary coordination with the property owner, there are roughly 70 parking spaces with an estimated 60 of them currently being utilized. Therefore, using those 4 spaces for construction should not impact any spaces currently in use by any building tenants. But the department's always looking to ensure that they do their due diligence to be mindful of any possible impacts to the public. So as of now, this alternative is being considered secondary, but we still want to make sure to present it to you tonight to give you an opportunity to see it and ask any questions and provide any comments that you may have. Those access road slides provide a perfect segue to talk about the Maintenance and Protection of Traffic, or MPT as it is usually abbreviated. Construction will result in the need to close the I-84 eastbound Broad Street on-ramp, possibly for several weekend periods, both on and off peak, in order to facilitate access to the project site via utilizing the access road. This will allow the contractor to maximize their time and effort and help reduce the need for them to continuously have to remobilize their equipment and their materials. During this time, a motorist detour will be in effect. Temporary eastbound lane and shoulder closures may also be necessary to facilitate the work at the barrier wall along the embankment of I-84 eastbound. This would require traffic to be shifted over safely into the other travel lanes. Alongside Asylum Avenue, temporary right lane and shoulder closures may be necessary to facilitate the drainage work to be done at the sidewalk. Just as with the I-84 eastbound lane closure above, this would require traffic to be shifted over safely into the other travel lanes. During this time, the sidewalk will be closed within this area and a pedestrian detour will be in effect. We'll talk about this and the motorist detour on the next couple of slides. As mentioned in the previous slide, a motorist detour will be necessary for when the Broad Street on-ramp to I-84 eastbound is closed. Shown on this slide is the current recommended detour. As noted in the legend here at the bottom of the screen, the detour route is indicated in blue with white arrows guiding the motorist to the exit 47 on-ramp from Sigourney Street. Traffic heading northbound on Broad Street will turn left onto Farmington Avenue and then take a left onto Sigourney Street, heading south. Traffic will then turn left onto the exit 47 on-ramp onto I-84 eastbound and continue on their journey. Traffic heading southbound on Broad Street will turn right onto Capitol Avenue, continue to Capitol Avenue, and then take a left onto Park Terrace. Traffic will then take a quick right at the loop here, get onto Sigourney Street, and then another quick right onto the exit 47 on-ramp, and then on I-84 eastbound, continuing your journey as well. Any applicable signs relating to this detour will be on display during the operation of the detour. The Department of Transportation is aware that the City of Hartford may have a project within this area over here. As such, the department will remain in contact with the city, and if anything changes that would impact the anticipated detour route shown here, revisions will be made. Again, please consider that this project is still in its preliminary phase. Now that we have discussed the anticipated motorist detour, shown on the screen currently is the recommended pedestrian detour. As noted in the legend here at the top of the page, the recommended pedestrian detour route is indicated in blue. Beginning on Farmington Avenue, the pedestrian detour includes crossing Asylum Avenue via utilizing the existing crosswalks at the intersection of Asylum Avenue, Farmington Avenue, Garden Street, and Spring Street. Pedestrians will then continue eastbound along the sidewalk on the north side of Asylum Avenue. Pedestrians can then cross back over at the intersection of Asylum Avenue and Spruce Street and get to wherever they need to go from there. This detour will be in effect when the underdrain work along Asylum Avenue begins here in front of the ArtSpace building. While this work is going on, this entire stretch of the sidewalk here is anticipated to be closed to pedestrian traffic up to the front double doors of the ArtSpace building. It's currently anticipated that these doors will remain open and should not be impacted by construction. Again, applicable signs will be on display during the operation of the detour. Next, we will discuss the possible utility and environmental impacts that this project may cause. In terms of utilities, while there are existing illumination, such as street lights, etc., and communication utilities noted, which run along the sidewalk just outside of the ArtSpace building entrance, no utility impacts are anticipated. With the connection of the underdrain to the existing catch basin on Asylum, it is anticipated that these existing utilities will be avoided and may be protected during construction if necessary. Alongside I-84 eastbound, the Connecticut DOT has existing illumination, highway lighting, etc., and existing IMS services which run adjacent to the roadside barrier. Because of site accessibility needs, up to 3 highway lights within this area may be impacted in some way. The existing IMS services allow the operation of a traffic camera within the area and will need to remain optional during construction. In terms of environmental impacts, as we discussed earlier, vegetation overgrowth and the clearing of various trees will be necessary, especially when creating the temporary access site access road. But the area is anticipated to be restored following construction activities. Continuing with possible impacts, even though in general we pretty much mentioned the various possible rights-of-way impacts throughout this entire presentation, we'll use this slide more so as a review to bring everything together. So a construction easement may be necessary when performing the work alongside the ArtSpace building, due in part to the current failed wall resting on the building itself. In addition, a construction easement may also be necessary for the drainage work to be performed at Asylum Avenue. And lastly, a temporary access easement may be needed to utilize the ArtSpace building driveway if access road alternative number 2 ends up being utilized. Coming up, we have Matt Giannakopoulos of the Connecticut Department of Transportation's Rights-of-Way Unit, who will be joining us momentarily, and will provide some general information involving the rights-of-way process. Before I pass this over to Matt, though, I have one more slide for my portion, where I will discuss the general project schedule and cost. So again, before I wrap up my portion of this presentation, I just wanted to provide a brief overview of the anticipated project schedule and costs. Currently, this project is expected to begin construction in the spring of 2022 and finish in the fall of 2022. The anticipated construction cost is roughly $1.7 million, with 90% of that federally funded and 10% to be covered by the state. Please note that the current project schedule and costs are preliminary and are subject to change. At this time, I'd like to hand things over to Matt Giannakopoulos, again of the department's right-of-way unit, to provide some general information on the rights-of-way process.
My name is Matt Giannakopoulos, and I am a project coordinator with the department's Division of Rights-of-Way. It is our office's responsibility to acquire the property rights needed for transportation projects. The proposed project design requires the acquisition of property rights, so I'd like to give a brief overview of the department's right-of-way acquisition process. Please keep in mind, though, that the specific impacts are still being fine-tuned and may change as the design progresses. Any property rights that will be required will be acquired in accordance with Connecticut General Statutes Sections 13A-73 and 13A-98E. Whenever there is federal money used in any aspect of a project, the department must adhere to the Uniform Relocation Assistance and Real Property Acquisition Policies Act of 1970 as amended. Once the design has moved to the point where we are ready to begin the acquisition process, each affected property owner will receive a formal letter of intent to acquire from our office, along with a property map which depicts the exact property rights to be acquired. At that point, our office will determine the fair market value of those property rights and use that value to establish an offer of just compensation. That offer will be sent out to the property owner in writing, and a right-of-way agent will be available to meet with the property owner and explain the project, go over the specific impacts to their property, and explain the state's offer. Property owner will have a reasonable time, typically at least 30 days, to consider the state's offer and enter into negotiations. When an agreement is reached, the states will prepare all the necessary paperwork and record the deed and the property map on the town land records. However, if negotiations reach an impasse, in order to keep everything on schedule, the department may acquire the necessary property rights through its power of eminent domain. In that event, the state files a notice of condemnation in the Superior Court, along with a monetary deposit in the amount of the state's offer. The owner would have 6 months from that date to file an appeal if they felt that the state's offer was inadequate. Whether or not the owner chooses to appeal, the money that was deposited in the court is available to be withdrawn by the owner, subject to the discretion of the Superior Court. I know a lot of people, when they hear the phrase eminent domain, thinks that it means the state just takes their property for $1. However, the owners are entitled to at least the state's original offer of just compensation, and the state only takes title to the property rights that are needed for the project. If there are any questions regarding the department's right-of-way acquisition process, I'd be happy to address them once the presentation has concluded.
Okay, thank you very much, Carl and Matt, for the presentation. Ladies and gentlemen, this concludes the presentation, and we will now begin the live Q&A or question and answer session. So we encourage everyone who is with us tonight to put forward any questions or comments that they may have. And once again, as we've mentioned previously, there are several ways in which your questions and comments may be submitted tonight. If you are joining us through Microsoft Teams, then please utilize the chat window to the right of the screen and type in your question there. All the questions will be screened by the project team and should be visible once it gets published. You may also submit your questions via the project email, which once again, for those of you listening in tonight, is DOT project 0063-0723 at ct.gov, or by calling in on the phone number and leaving a voicemail. The phone number is once again 860-944-1111. For those that are joining us tonight on YouTube, links to the website, the survey, phone number, and the email can all be found in the description below the video. And once again, I'd like to remind everybody who's with us tonight that the question and comment period will stay open through December 22nd. That is a 2-week window in which if you come up with a question or comment after tonight's meeting, you are still able to submit those questions and comments via project email and phone number. We'd like to thank everyone once again for joining us tonight and participating in our efforts to keep everyone informed so that we might receive all questions and input to produce the best possible results for a successful project. Receiving feedback through public involvement such as tonight's meeting is very important to the department's success to provide the services needed. Once again, we would really appreciate participation in the survey made available for this project. And that was made available through SurveyMonkey. And the SurveyMonkey project website can be found at https://www.surveymonkey.com/r/2SSP3ZY. And that link can be found on the project website as well. Okay, it looks like we have our first question that came in. So thank you very much for your question. The question reads, the literature said construction is going to start in 22. Will the current failed wall create any damage to the building in the meantime? And can it deteriorate further and put pressure on the exterior of the building and cause any problems? So thank you very much once again for your question. Carl, would you like to take that one?
Sure, John. Carl Stanek here from CHA. As currently inspected, there is no concern with the failed wall posing any problems for the building into when construction is supposed to occur in 2022.
Okay, thank you very much, Carl. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us tonight. I am again Jonathan Kang. I am the project engineer with the Department of Transportation, and we are waiting for some more questions to come in. As we are doing that, I'd like to just remind everybody that we do have 3 different methods by which you are able to submit your questions and comments to us. The first being that can be done if you are joining us through the Microsoft Teams application through the meeting chat. And once again, after tonight's meeting, the comment period will be open through December 22nd, 2020, and by which you will be able to submit your questions or comments via project email or by phone. Project email once again is DOT project 0063-0723 at ct.gov. And the phone number by which you will be able to leave a voicemail is once again 860-944-1111. Okay, so it seems as though we have our second question that just came in. Thank you very much for that question. It reads, when is the project anticipated to start and how long will it take? Carl, would you like to take that one as well?
Sure, John. Thanks. Carl Stanek again from CHA. Again, project is anticipated to start in the spring of 2022. Also finish in 2022 as well in the fall. And it's estimated to take between 4 to 5 months.
Okay, thank you very much, Carl. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us tonight. My name is Jonathan Kang. I am a project engineer with the Department of Transportation. And we encourage everyone to continue to submit their questions. So it looks like we have our third question that's come in. Thank you very much again for submitting your question. It reads, with all of the budget concerns, are funds in place to accomplish this project? And I'll be able to answer this question once again, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Jonathan Kang, and I am a project engineer with the Connecticut Department of Transportation. So regarding the budget, there currently are funds estimated for this project that will become obligated once construction begins in 2022. However, as previously mentioned in the presentation, that could be subject to change based on future fiscal year budgeting and as, depending on how the project progresses. But currently, the construction cost for the project is estimated at about $1.7 million, and we don't foresee any concerns with meeting that budget. Once again, everybody, I'd like to just remind that all the information that we've gone over tonight, including this presentation, will be made available on the project website that can be found at https://portal.ct.gov/DOT Hartford 63-723. On the website, you'll be able to find the project email, the phone number, as well as the links to the survey made available for the project, which again we would appreciate participation in, so that we may receive all input possible from the public, and it will help us moving forward. Okay, so it seems as though we have another question that came in. Thank you very much for your question. It reads, which ramps will be closed and for how long during construction? Carl, would you like to take that one as well?
Sure, John. The on-ramp from Broad Street is anticipated to be closed, just that one. I'll bring up the slide here. The ramp may be closed during several weekend periods per the contractor's construction needs, which will be stipulated in the contract documents of the project. Allowing these weekend ramp closures will allow for the contractor to maximize the amount of time, the amount of work rather, that can be performed with any one time frame.
Okay, thank you very much, Carl. We'd like to thank everyone once again for joining us tonight and participating in our effort to keep everyone informed so that we might receive all questions and comments and gather input to produce the best possible results for a successful project. Once again, for those of you joining through YouTube, the links to the project website, the survey, phone number, and project email can be found in the description below. For everybody listening in, the project website will have all the information available and can be found at https://portal.ct.gov/DOT portal.ct.gov/DOT Hartford 63-723. Seems as though we have another question that's been submitted. Thank you very much for your question. It reads, how much notice will the public receive when the Broad Street ramp will be closed, and how? Carl, would you like to take that?
Sure, John. Carl Stanek again from CHA. The department will provide notice in the form of signs within the vicinity of the project. Typically, these signs will be placed at least 2 to 4 weeks prior to construction. I can go back to the motorist detour here, and you'll see the various detour signs posted throughout the detour when in use.
All right, thank you very much, Carl. We'd like to reiterate once again that receiving feedback through public involvement such as tonight's meeting is very important to the department's success to provide the services needed through projects such as that have been presented, such as the one tonight. Okay, once again, we'd like to reiterate that as we bring tonight's meeting to a close, that the question and comment period will remain open via email and phone through December 22nd of 2020. And just to reiterate once again, that the email and phone number can be found on the project website at https://portal.ct.gov/DOT Hartford 63-723. With that, I'd like to conclude tonight's meeting. Once again, we'd like to thank everyone for joining us tonight and participating in our effort to keep everyone informed so that we might receive all questions and input to produce the best possible results for a successful project. And once again, we'd appreciate participation in the survey made available for this project that can be found at the project website as well. With that, please everybody have a good rest of your night, and thank you once again for joining us.